Happy Sunday night. I am thrilled to be joined by Kyle and Chris for Refounding Fathers Live. We've been doing this show a little bit inconsistently, but having a lot of fun with it and started to kind of land on a time. And so we're checking out Sunday nights as our time. We've got our Conservatism on Tap show that's going to happen here in about half an hour. And I thought it'd be great to start putting the shows right next to each other. So this is a show where I get to, as the conservative, I get to talk to Kyle here, who is a libertarian, and I get to get his perspective. So welcome, Kyle. How you doing, brother?
Doing all right, man. How you doing today?
Doing good, man. I'm happy to made it through the week and enjoying the last little bit of this weekend. And then
Nice, man.
it's going to be fun tonight because I've got Chris on the show. Chris is a liberal Biden supporter. And with this election that's just happened, I can't wait to get your thoughts, Chris. I know we've talked before, but welcome back to the show, brother.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. So it looks like we got about 4 or 5 folks that are logging in live for us. That's awesome. Give us a little comment. Let us know, where you're at tonight. Let us know what you're thinking about the election. We've talked about that a lot on this show. I do want to show you guys this. This is from Real Clear Politics. So, I've started talking about this every day, pretty much talking about where RCP, as I call them, have been calling the election, what they've had in terms of numbers, because I kind of find them to be a really great source, and that they pull from various different other polling mechanisms and reporting mechanisms, and they put it together, and you can kind of see that hybrid there that they have. So they were very, very slow to call this election. They were very slow in Arizona, very slow in Pennsylvania, and so they've just now project that Biden's going to win the election. I respect that. I think we've talked about it that Fox was quick to call Arizona. It looks like Georgia's heading to a recount. And even on RCP, they are including stuff from the Trump campaign and Trump surrogates and people who are talking about lawsuits and everything else. And then they're including stuff from the left. And in terms of people who are like, you know what, it's over and done and we need to move on. And I just kind of appreciate that they have that back and forth. But they now are one of the last holdout major news stream sources to say that this election is going for Biden. But I know a lot of people are still talking about recounts and corruption, potential fraud in the election. And I just wanted to get your guys' take on that. So let me ask you first, Kyle, has any of that registered with you? Do you believe that there was a lot of fraud in this election? Are you open to the possibility, or do you think it's kind of, at this point, a moot point, not going to change anything?
Well, I think the answer is both. Quite honestly, yeah, I'm open to the idea that there was fraud. Our history has a history. Our nation has a history of electoral fraud. Going back to the 1800s and probably even earlier than that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this election, I'm definitely open to the possibility. But there's a famous line from a movie that says, "It's not what you know, it's what you can prove."
Yeah.
And I think that's
It's a
really
good
gonna
bend.
be. Yeah, yeah. So I think it's what's going to come down in this circumstance. I'm open to the idea that it happened, but without proof. I think we're just grasping at straws. I say we. That's not me. I think the MAGA folks in particular are the ones grasping.
Yeah, how about you, Chris? In terms of proof and evidence, what would it take to convince you that there was widespread fraud in this election? Do you think that's even a possibility?
Better lawyers, for one, but certainly better facts. I mean, when you have his lawyers arguing one thing in court and Trump is saying something totally different, the case that they're making in courts across the nation are so watered down and diluted from the Trump tweets that we're seeing. And yet they're still losing those cases because they can't even prove or provide evidence for the minimal level of fraud that they are alleging exists and which they are admitting in court would not be enough to actually sway the election. So yes, voter fraud exists. All kinds of crimes exist in this country. And this is one of those crimes that is almost too minuscule to register in most areas.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. If this election had come down to just one state, and that state was Pennsylvania, and we were looking at Philadelphia, I think there'd be a lot more attention on this issue, and a lot more focused attention from the Trump administration. But they're having to do lawsuits in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Michigan,
Yeah.
in Wisconsin, and
Wisconsin, Michigan. Yeah.
yeah, there's like a six
There
foot.
should be a recount in Georgia just because it was so close, and it would be nice to know what the real number of votes is. So I'm not opposed to that at all, but what I am opposed to is this conspiratorial reality, completely removed from reality theory that's going around. And I expected it from Trump. I think I'm shocked by seeing it from so many people in his administration, seeing it from Secretary of State Pompeo, hearing that they are planning for a second Trump term. It's just insane to me and completely un-American.
Well, when you talk about the like conspiratorial piece of it that's coming out, there's almost this like assurance that it did happen, that it had to happen. I've seen people say, well, look at the Trump rallies and all the people. This has to prove that Biden didn't have that support. And it's like, well, elections are not won by rallies alone. I mean, people can vote from their house, right? Like they can vote that way. Just because Biden didn't have a lot of rallies, he wasn't trying to have a lot of rallies. That wasn't his strategy. If he was campaigning the same way that Trump was, well, then obviously, yeah, you can go with that. But the fact that Trump had these big rallies, and then all of a sudden we're seeing Biden win on the basis of a lot of absentee mail-in voting, that type of thing.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, it still kind of makes sense. But there's almost this assurance that it has to have been corrupt. And I think in certain places you can kind of investigate it. You can say, hey, you look at like Philadelphia, and there's this history of corruption in their state and local elections. So, hey, where there's smoke, there's fire. Let's look at this. But this kind of the assurance and this conspiratorial language, I want to show you guys something. This is a video from a very well-known actor. He wasn't in a Few Good Men, Kyle, but he's been in a lot of really good movies. Enemy of the State's one of my favorites that I think he's in. And he did this video that I saw on Twitter, and I've seen so many people sharing it. I believe the president shared it. And I'm just going to get your reactions to it. And I just want to like take a look at the perspective because it comes from someone who I think is a conservative. And as a conservative, I think I at least have to wrestle with it. So here it is.
My fellow Americans, I stand here with all that feel as I do, disgusted with this lie that Biden has been chosen, as if we all don't know the truth. And when one tries to deceive, we know that one can't get away with it. There will be a price to pay. The ones who are jumping for joy now are jumping toward the horror they will be in for, because I know that the promises being made from the left to the American people will never come to be. My friends of all colors, races, and religions, this is now our greatest fight since the Civil War, the battle of righteousness versus Satan. Yes, Satan, because these leftists are evil, corrupt, and they want to tear down this nation. We must not allow this. We must fight this corruption that has taken over and fight for the good that seems lost. Let us give our trust to God and fight now for Trump's victory, because we all know this ballot count is corruption like they are. So let us not back down. Let us fight this fight as if it is our last fight on earth. As Muhammad Ali said, it's not over till the last punch you have. God bless.
Oh boy, I don't know where to start, you guys. So,
Can we start with him quoting the great conservative thinker Muhammad Ali?
well, yeah, right. So, I mean, there's just so much there. First of all, I mean, Chris, I didn't know that you were in league with Satan. Like, yes, Satan. He used words like evil, corrupt, trying to tear down this country. Like, I mean, I have my thoughts, and I'm a conservative. I am not a liberal. But what is what like to with that kind of accusation coming from someone so prominent, the president sharing it? Like, what are your thoughts, Chris? Like, are you in league with Satan? Like,
I mean, I did know that because that's something that I've been hearing since I was a kid about liberals in general. I've heard it from people on the internet. I've heard it from people in my church where I grew up. So it's not new. This idea that liberals are evil and that I'm evil and many of my friends and family and my wife are evil for being liberal. It is new to have that promoted from the highest office in the land. It is new to have that be said by people as prominent as John Voight.
It's just, man,
And,
like I think of liberals, I think of Martin Luther King, I think of
and
JFK,
Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali, like I think of Thomas Jefferson, I think of Thomas Paine. I can think of many liberals in this country. I also think of, sure, Bernie Sanders or, AOC, some people that are avowed socialists. But to label all liberals as trying to tear down this country and evil, like that was the language that he used, evil. And there's this assurance that the country did not choose Biden. And again, I have an open mind on this. Like, I want to see the evidence, like you guys are talking about, but it's just shocking to me that this is the perspective. And I want to get your take on it, Kyle, because you and I are both Christians. We've gone to the same church before. Like, casting politics in this spiritual light, where he has this difference between righteousness and evil, and he's telling us to trust God and to fight to the last punch, for Trump. And like, what is he calling us to do exactly in a spiritual sense? Like, can you make sense of that for me?
I don't know if I can make sense of it for you, but I can give you some thoughts on it. I guess my take on it. I have a couple different takes. One is I place about as much confidence or as much weight on John Voight's opinion as I do John Legend's. Like, if it's a celebrity, I don't care. Like, they're not smart people, so I'm not going to listen to them. Republican, Democrat, whatever. I'm just not going to listen
President
to them.
sharing this, man. The president sharing this stuff.
And that is the heart of the issue, I guess. Jack Donaghy, 30 Rock, classic quote: Republicans don't have any cool celebrities, and that's about the truth when it comes to this. But
Yeah.
I think it does indicate. I don't actually. What would be interesting to know is John Voight's own spiritual bow, because I don't know him as an avowed Christian. He's not popular in Christian circles.
Reading off
I don't even know how.
Yeah, he's being fed.
I don't even know how conservative he is. I know he's very Republican, but I don't even think he's ideologically.
Yeah.
But it does represent a problem among the Republican Party, but also the Democrat Party. But I think the Republican Party in particular definitely views politics in a religious way in a lot of circumstances, that our way is the way of truth and righteousness, and anyone who disagrees with that is evil. And of course, you see it on the left too. People calling Republicans deplorables. Anyone who votes for Trump is a racist, evil, homophobe, bigot, whatever. So you definitely see that casting aspersions on both sides, but it's gross. And honestly, I think it points to a bigger issue in a lot of different ways. But ultimately, it's like when we replace religion, as religion becomes less prominent in society, like we have to make idols out of other things, and for many people, that's politics.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an alignment with conservatism and Christianity, but I've talked to so many people who are conservative but not Christians, right? We had George Will on our show. He's an atheist.
Yeah.
And you look at even some of
Donald Trump, man. Like,
yeah, I mean,
if anyone thinks that guy is an actual Christian based on anything that he said, you're out of your mind.
Yeah. I mean, I look at some.
Yeah, I mean, Biden was at church this morning. Trump was on the golf course, and that is, fairly typical behavior for both of them.
Well, I think even some of the great conservatives. I mean, John Adams didn't believe that Jesus was the Son of God. He thought he was a great prophet, right? Thomas Jefferson didn't believe that either. So I think of Thomas Jefferson more as a liberal personally, but even if someone was to say, no, he was a conservative, well, he certainly wasn't a very strong Christian, much more of a deist type Christian who didn't really believe, that Jesus actually did miracles and rose from the dead, that type of thing. So very few of the people that we would look at in history, in American history, were really that strong Christian, and then conservatives haven't been purely Christian. So there are plenty of atheist, agnostic,
Absolutely.
other religions, that would classify themselves as right wing. And so to cast it in this light is pretty wild to me. And then at the same time, I think that there are plenty of liberals, right, who could be Christians as well, who could follow similar ethics as well. To cast them all as evil because they voted, in an election. And I mean, again, look at the numbers here. Look at what we're talking about. Is all of these states going blue? Are we going to see every last one of those people is evil? And I like
Yeah.
maybe there's a few, but there's also evil people on the right side as well. We've seen it with the neo-Nazis and the KKK that we've talked about, Trump and disavowing them and all that, and yet they're still, to some degree sending money in and that type of thing. So to cast it in this light, I'm just, as a Christian, I am always skeptical of someone saying, I am on the side of righteousness and my opponent is evil. If anything, Kyle, my Christianity tells me that there is evil within me, that my human nature
Yeah.
is
Absolutely.
perfect. I mean, you think about Jesus talking to Peter, and he's like, "Get behind me, Satan!" Right? That's Peter, one of
Mhm.
his disciples.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the King David, Psalm writer. See, even in my mother's womb, I was evil.
yeah,
So
like
yeah,
so you start to realize that this battle between good and evil is in the Bible. It's a battle, between the spiritual and the flesh, not so much
yeah.
between Republican and Democrat, right?
That's right. That's right.
So it kind of brings me to my last question for tonight: is what will a Biden? Let's say so. RCP is calling the election for Biden. All the major news networks have done. There are still these lawsuits. There's still several pending. There's recounts pending and that type of thing. But I think we have to at least realize that there's a strong likelihood that those things won't hold up. I mean, there's talks about Dominion and the software and all that stuff. But I just, at this point, while it's not fully certified, and it won't be if you're for a few more weeks, we have to consider the possibility that this election is going to be resolved very soon, and that Biden, will be setting up an administration. And if that's the case, what are we living in? What is that administration going to look like? And more to the point, what are our belief systems going to look like? Are we entering into an evil time, in American history? Are we entering into, something that's purely terrible? So it's just a question. So kind of something to leave you guys with. I mean, do you see this, Chris, as a chance with a Biden administration for him to just punish and go after the church? Like, is that the opportunity here? Is to take people like me and Kyle and to just say, now you're going to get yours. Now we're going to punish you. We're going to eradicate religious liberty in this country, and we're going to make you suffer. Is that what you see as the future?
So you're asking, is he going to attack Christianity and dethrone God, as
Yeah,
someone tweeted a few months back
yeah.
that we could
You as a Biden supporter, as a liberal, as someone who's connected to so many others, I know you're on Twitter a lot, and you've been on the show a lot, and you're very vocal. Like, what do you see in a Biden administration? Is it this chance for reciprocity and anger towards Christians, towards religious liberty?
I don't think Biden has any anger toward Christians. I haven't seen any evidence of that. Biden is a Catholic. He was in church today. He has some more socially liberal views than a majority of Catholics and Christians. And to some extent, the Obama administration did take some action that many religious people saw as an attack, requiring certain Catholic hospitals to, I believe, subsidize contraception. There were a few other decisions, but I don't think that any of that was motivated by retribution or vengeance, just different moral priorities and a different kind of stacking of, what rights the Obama administration was going to focus on. I would be honestly surprised if the Biden administration even takes any kind of attack line on the outgoing Trump administration. I think there's going to be a lot of desire, especially on Biden's part, to kind of move on and move past the division and the hatred and the tribalism of the Trump administration. I think Biden is going to try and be a unifier, despite having quite leftward policy positions. But I do think it's kind of another two wolves situation, because part of me, does think there needs to be some justice for, particularly the masterminds behind the child separation policy that has led to so many parents unable to find their children.
Yeah.
I do think that Trump has committed real legitimate crimes. And I know the historical norm has been for the oncoming president to kind of pardon the outgoing one, and set things aside. I know that the Obama administration was very reluctant to go after any of the architects of the Iraq War or the financial crash. And in a way, I understand why that is, because these are not just people of immense power. They are also people who are the tribal symbols of entire large groups of Americans. And any kind of attack on them, to many, looks like an attack on the opposing side. But at the same time, they are people of immense power. And so if we continue with this historical norm, what that means is that the people in power play by a different rule, and that they get away with things that you and I could not, and that there will not be accountability for offenses committed under this administration. So I think it is a tough balancing act.
Yeah. I think about this, and I think that words that castigate the other side or doubt, their motives are always dangerous. And certainly Trump has been guilty of that and preyed upon that. But I don't think that two wrongs make a right in this. And it's going to be interesting, because I can tell you like that. I don't think that language coming from Voight or whomever is helpful. It's not, and it's not accurate, and it's just not good spirituality or Christianity, in my opinion. There's a comment here from Kenneth who says, I'm not sure I could say without a doubt that Trump is not a Christian. I've struggled with evil within myself for my lifetime. Trump is a communicational train wreck among other unprecedented issues, but biblically so was King David. Just an observation. And then he thanked us for the show. And I think that's the kind of person that supported Trump. This is for Chris as well.
Sure.
It's like, there was a post, I think, from Andrew Yang, who was like, we need to remember that there are issues that led people to support Trump in spite of himself, and those are real issues. And then, someone posted, well, it's just because they were racist, right? Like, we've got to move beyond this on both sides. Yeah. So I'm admitting it from the conservative side. Is it something we've got to admit to? We've got to find other voices that break down our spirituality and everything that flows from that in such a way that there's a space to be able to communicate. And believing the worst about someone, vile, evil, corrupt, tearing this country apart, it just creates no space for the opposite. Creates an enormous amount of pride. So I'm going to give you the last word, Kyle, and then we're going to go. But I think this is a great time for us to do this show, to provide that alternative voice. Looking right here, you've got Chris, you've got me, you've got Kyle, you've got three voices here that are trying to facilitate that conversation in ways that some of the people out there are not at all. So your thoughts on that, Kyle, and then we'll roll out for tonight.
Yeah, I guess a couple thoughts here. I don't want to get into much of a theology lesson here for Kenneth. I'm certainly not trying to argue as well. But repentance is a pretty big part of the Christian life, as well as discipleship and sanctification. And when you see someone like Trump saying there's nothing for which he'd ever had to apologize or repent of, I don't think that bodes well for someone living an orthodox Christian lifestyle anyway. But we can take that offline if you like to. I'll be more than happy to kind of talk through that. I don't think he's an evil guy or a bad guy, but just kind of coming from an orthodox Christian standpoint, is kind of a response to Biden being Catholic. I think he was raised Catholic, but truthfully speaking, many bishops have said that he is what is it, Latea Sententiae, something along those lines. Basically, silently excommunicated because of his positions on abortion, for example. He's been denied communion at several times, which actually puts him at odds and silently excommunicated from the Roman Catholic Church. All that to say, I've said this before, and it's kind of been a recurring theme here. Politics is not religion. Religion is religion. Politics is politics, right? And obviously, from a Christian worldview, that influences and shapes my worldview, which leads into politics and political positions. But ultimately, they're very different things.
Yeah, there's a thriving Christian community in China, under a communist regime. You just look through the Bible and you see, Jesus lived during Rome, right? Like the early Christian church under Nero.
Exactly. Yeah.
You could go back to Babylon with,
Yeah.
the Jewish state. Like you could go on and on and on. Is that there are separate struggles here, and I totally agree with you. And it's our job to do our best. But you look at how Jesus treated his enemies, and I think it was very different. Than that. There was always a communication there. So.
Yeah, if I could, I'll just kind of wrap it up here. Quoting, I belong to a Reformed tradition, or kind of adhere to a more Reformed tradition of Christianity, and there's a kind of a saying in that line of theology or orthodoxy that says, "When God wants to judge a nation, He gives them bad rulers." And I think that's a continuation. I think Biden is not the first evil ruler that we've had. I think Trump predates him, and even going back before that. So, not to get too theological with it, but I think God is judging our nation for sure.
Yeah. So, well, thank you guys for your comments on this. Appreciate doing this show. We're going to reset here for Conservatism on Tap. We're going to kick that off here in about 5 minutes. So, thank you so much, guys. Thanks for all of your input. And this just shows us more and more that in a Biden administration, with a country so divided, that we need voices and conversations like this to be able to survive and to keep this country going and to bring out what's best of it and what's best from opposing beliefs, right? Which is what we're trying to do. So thank you, guys. For those that are watching, don't forget theberkingconservative.com, our YouTube channel. You can search for The Berking Conservative there, Instagram, Twitter, and then, of course, on Facebook as well. So thank you, guys, and we'll see you next week.